Enter a world of unicorns, magic swamps, dwarves, and rainbows.
Woo! On this episode of the History of the Course podcast with Curtis and Josh, we take a look at the Nintendo core band known as Horse the Band. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurviveByPro for news and latest episode postings. Make sure to subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. And if you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment, tweet us the keyword stream. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta. Army surrounded.
On a warm summer day, you'll find him there, relaxing in the shadows, tapping his toe under a tree down in Kangarooster Meadows. Welcome back to the History of the Chorus podcast, sponsored by the Church of Seven Track, where each and every episode we take a look at the history of a band from the core genre. I'm Curtis, and with me, as always, is my frustrated, technologically impaired buddy, Josh. On a scale to 1 to 10, Josh, how pissed off are you?
I'm
10
like an
being
eight.
really ultra pissed.
I'm like an eight.
I'm done. I am done with all of this.
I'm pretty pissed at Elgato right now.
This episode is brought to you by Elgato Stream
No, it is
Deck.
not.
Well, I mean, look on the bright side, buddy. Your situation can always be worse. Maybe? I think
No,
so.
this is the worst thing that ever happened to anyone.
First world problems. Oh no, my Stream Deck doesn't work.
Fucking
No,
bullshit.
we'll get her up and working, and we'll be able to share some content via the audio waves
I
sooner or
hope so.
later. We will. Don't worry, we will. Okay, a little housekeeping real quick between me and Josh. Everybody turn your headphones off because it's between me and Josh only. I guess, do you want to push Coheed Corner back, or do you want to go ahead and do it this week?
Hmm, we'll talk about it next week.
Okay. Until next time. Alrighty. Well, instead of a little Coheed Corner, put a little pin in that. Oh, he's. I think he was just punching the Elgato
As I
Stream
angrily
Deck.
push the Coheed button.
Grr, man. Alrighty, Josh. Well, it's time, as always, to do our weekly segment where we talk about some music that we listened to this past week, outside of the band that we will be talking about. And since you have stepped away, I guess I'll go and share mine first. All right, this is a solo show. He is fully given up on everything technology. So this is my show now, and we're going to talk about whatever band we want to talk about, which means it's time for Between the Buried and Me Part 5. Because much like Coheed and Cambria for
Are you
you,
just going back
Josh,
to the beginning?
I cannot get enough of Between the Buried and Me's colors specifically. So yeah, I can't help it, Josh. Can't help it. Hopefully I'm making you sick with this transition. Or happy, either way. Uh, 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 And then there's Dan. Alrighty, what about you, Josh? What did you listen to this past week besides the old horse?
Let's see.
I can tell you what you listen to. A bunch of bull crap instructions on how not to get something to work correctly. Isn't that right, Josh?
If you're making a tutorial for anything, you should probably not leave out a massive chunk of information that's helpful to actually achieving the goal. I feel like every tutorial I watched was missing some crucial detail.
I would rather you give me too much detail. I would rather the person be like, all right, now take your right hand, place it on the mouse, and with your pointer finger, click on the icon. The icon is the thing on your desktop to open up a window. A window is a whole new world on the computer. I would really love them to just like dumb it down. I mean, like I'm a 5-year-old, because that way I'm not going to miss any step, right? Right?
Right.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, what else did you listen to besides
Who buys
instructional
a
videos?
Stream Deck Plus? Who buys a Stream Deck Plus? You just buy a normal fucking Stream Deck. Okay. I listen to a lot of Coheed, as I'm sure
Shocking.
you can imagine. Just a part of everyday life for me.
Yeah.
I'm still hung up on this idea that Atlas should have been on Heavenly Creatures or Vaxis 2. I I really don't care for it being on Color Before the Sun. It's it's fine with like everything else around it, but missed opportunity. Like that is a song that Creature could have written for Vaxis.
Yeah.
So, um,
I'll tell you what, why don't you just make yourself a playlist and drop it in there wherever you feel like it's necessary?
okay, all right, I like that.
I'm
Okay,
surprised you hadn't thought about that.
I listened to Killswitch Engage's self-titled, their first album.
This is the very first one?
Yeah,
Really? I
mm-hmm.
was thinking there was a different one before
It
that.
was 2000.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and that was pretty solid. It's been a long time since I listened to Killswitch, so it's fun to go back to that. I forgot how raw like that first album is. And it feels like everybody around this time is like trying to kind of be Lamb of God. So I feel like they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
more of like a Lamb of God sound around this time.
Okay.
But I enjoyed that. I also listened to some Counting Crows, Curtis. And then
Uh,
I've
okay.
I've been putting together a sick '90s playlist,
Oh,
and the song that kicked off that playlist was LEM.
LEM.
Yeah, you remember LEM?
No, I don't.
Steal My Sunshine, baby.
Oh my gosh. If you steal my sunshine.
Yep.
Nice.
Um, let's see what else we got. I think that's about it. Um, I do need to
Whoa.
sorry, it's been a very long day, and I was up extremely late dealing with
It
this
worked
nightmare.
earlier.
Well, what sucks is like
Hey,
everything's,
Josh, I believe you. I believe you it worked. Sure.
but
Sure it did.
it does work. I just can't get it to play for you through Zoom here.
Yeah.
Everything on my end is like good, but just playing it to you through Zoom, no good. Um, what was I saying? Okay. Um, I do need to address last week's episode of After Hours, though.
Let's hear
Um, because I guess, I don't know, I wasn't super surprised that Eric didn't really care for Listen to the Color, because to me, Listen to the Color is like, it's almost an homage to the fans.
it. Okay.
It feels like Game of Life 6.0. But
6.0.
the other side of that coin is that I know he likes, or well, at least out of those albums, he liked Game of Life. But the other side of that is that like, okay, well, then I am kind of surprised that you don't like
Listen to the color.
Listen to the Color, because it is Game of Life. I feel like in its most extreme state. Like this is the mature version of that.
Right.
This is the aged version, and it's got all the elements of Game of Life because of what we brought back, and they were like kind of trying to get back to that sound.
Right.
So I was a little off put by that.
Shame. Shame on him. That's why I was surprised when he said he wasn't a fan of. I was like, what? Come on, man. Listen to the Color is awesome.
It's
I love
amazing.
listening to the Color. I also like listening to Colors and Colors too. See what I did
Did
there?
was it? Did you say you didn't like Ride the Wave?
I don't know, man. I've slept too much since then.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. I can't remember anything I said on my own episode, so I'd be like, I said that? Really? Yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, you're always like pulling random sound clips of me, and I'm like, I have no memory of saying that.
Oh, like the one at the beginning of our episodes? That
Yeah,
was a beautiful one. The moment you said it, I was like, oh, this is golden.
this is a
This
sound
one's
clip.
getting clipped. Beautiful. And it
Well,
works
glad I could
perfectly.
help.
I feel like it works perfectly to start an episode every week. So we're definitely entering a world of unicorns, magic swamps, dwarves, and rainbows. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah. So, alrighty. Well, putting a pin on Coheed Corner, unfortunately, until next week. But on the bright side, Josh,
Technical issues.
another week closer to that album coming out in mid-March.
Yep.
Or is it early March? Okay, mid-March.
Well, I guess you could say early because I think it's supposed to be like the 13th, right?
That's
Something
why I
like
was
that.
trying to remember if it was in the teens, early teens or whatever. I can't remember. Well, anyway, it'll be here before you know it.
Oh
January went
yeah.
by quick, so
Oh yeah.
and I'm sure February will go by even quicker with the shorter mount. Alrighty, Josh, let's take a look at this wild, crazy band we got here. Little band known as Horse the Band, not to be confused with the other band, Band of Horses. Just want to clear that up. It's two totally different bands.
Very different
So,
bands.
very different. They both have keyboards, but they do different things with those keyboards. So, yeah. The Horse the Band, not Band of Horses, but Horse the Band is categorized in the genres of metalcore, hardcore punk, chip tune, and Nintendo core. I was telling Eric this earlier. I have this connection of when I think of or I listen to Horse the Band or vice versa, He is Legend. I always think of the other band. So if I'm listening or thinking of Horse the Band, I always think of He is Legend and vice versa. And the reason for that, Josh, was because I was introduced to these two bands at the same time. Horse the Bands are Borlax, which is right behind you, and He is Legends, I Am Hollywood album right at the same time. What a great time to be alive, Josh. What a great
Okay.
time. On the old school tiny iPods. Those are great. The classics. What about you, Josh? Did you ever get to see them in concert or, how
No.
did you come across them?
I think it was probably the song Cutsman that I first like heard from them. Um,
I feel like that's everybody's entry point,
yeah,
or
the
most people's at
only
least.
other way I might have heard about them would have been because, well, no, probably not, because they were around before a lot of people.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna
Borlax came out
say,
in 2003, so.
yeah, I'm gonna say probably just Cutsman.
Okay. Well, they are best known for their 8-bit video game influenced sound combined with metalcore. And although they are labeled under the genre of Nintendo core, the band have gone to lengths to distance themselves from the label, reiterating that this merely describes the sound, not the substance. Describe to me, Josh, the overall sound that you're hearing from this band.
Um, I mean, you just categorize like stuff like this as Nintendo core. That's like the easiest way to codify it. Um, I mean, it's 80s style synth most of the time, mixed with, I don't even want to say it's not necessarily technical.
It's there's
It's just
some math
chaotic.
rock
Yeah,
vibes at
there's
times,
definitely
but
math rock vibes,
it's not
but
as like you're saying, it's not as technical though, but it's in that realm of chaos,
right.
vocally and musically. There's some
Feels like
hardcore
kind
elements
of,
to it.
I almost want to say maybe some elements of jazz, just with like all the
Yeah.
kind of chaos and freeform nonsense.
Freeform jazz. Yeah. Controlled chaos is how I always like to categorize some of this stuff, like
Yeah.
them and the chariot. It's not so far out of control that, there's no reins around it, but
Where,
because
but
it's interest
two
what?
different sides. It's impossible to take this band seriously.
No, and that's
As
the other
hard
thing
as it is
too.
to take a band like I Wrestled a Bear one seriously, it's infinitely harder to take this band seriously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is like you get that chaos, but then at times, like out of nowhere, it like slows down and kind of gets some rhythm to it, kind of like what you were talking about with like the jazz too. But then next thing you know, it picks right back up into the crazy nonsense. So,
I would have figured there would have been less like structure and rhythm in their like EPs, but I feel like that's where some of like the most of it is.
right. Yeah. And I wonder if that has to do with more member changes, because there's a lot of member changes in this band, dude. I know that's shocking to
I
you
mean,
and me and everybody.
I feel like bands like this are often kind of just a revolving door when it's not so serious, you know?
Right, exactly. Well, but the other thing too is like, and we'll get into it a little more. I mean, I'll mention some of it, but their vocalist Nathan Weinke, um, he starts out on drums, and then he goes to bass, and then he becomes the um, vocalist by the time their debut comes out, our Borlax. So I wonder too with that if him kind of coming through some of the instruments. Um, And then the way his vocal style is just like really raw and chaotic, lends to their later stuff having that feel. Whereas the early stuff, you've got, different vocalists, you've got a different, guitarist, bassist, whatever, you
Right.
know. So just different styles. But anyway, let us dive on into the madness, Josh. You want to?
Yeah.
Formed in, I guess, formed in 1998 in Lake Forest, California, by high school classmates Eric Engstrom on keyboards and David Eisen on guitar. Now, originally, Josh, the duo planned to be a ska pop punk band, but the group would find itself producing more traditional hardcore punk music with an original lineup that also featured Jason Roberts on bass, Jason Caruza on drums, and Adam Crook on vocals. That would have been kind of interesting if they would have stuck with the ska pop punk um, direction, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But um, I always kind of wondered what's up with the name? How'd you come up with it? Is there supposed to be some like acronym for horse or, or is it just like the goofiness? I don't know. I couldn't find anything on it, but yeah.
I'm surprised you can find anything on this band.
This is very true, man. I was very lucky to find some of the stuff I did. The first 3 years would be spent touring locally while writing, recording, and releasing several demos, which would feature rough versions of future songs. So here's some of those demos, Josh. Starting out with 1998's Food EP, which was produced and self released by the band. Now, this album has three songs on it. It's all instrumental tracks. The Ambiguous Camel, H and C, What We See. Then you have 1999's Concerning the Kangarooster EP, which was also self-produced and self-released, featuring songs The Ambiguous Camel, H, This Spake the Kangarooster, Sitcom Number 3, and The Tale of James.
Thus spake the kangarooster.
Then following that up, you have 1999 Scabies, The Kangarooster, and You, featuring songs The Ambiguous Camel, H, X4 Chickens at AOL.com. Email it, see what happens. This Spec, The Kangarooster, AP Physics, C, Independent Study, Sitcom Number 3, The Tale of James, The Feast, and Emo Goblin. I'm trying to remember which ones of those that I sent you were actually on YouTube, because that was the other thing too. You can't even find all of this stuff on YouTube, let alone Spotify. Do you remember which ones of those? I think you're on mute, by the way.
Not right off the top of my head. There's so many of them, dude.
Yeah. Anyway, fast forward to 2001, the band's member lineup would look different when they had begun, as the new formation consisted of Adam Crook on vocals, David Eisen on guitar, Eric Engstrom on keys, Guy Morgenstern on bass, and Nathan Weineke on drums. This lineup would gather up the funds to produce and self-release a longer demo album, 2001's The Secret Rhythm of the Universe, which featured songs The Club, Salvation Army, Sitcom Number 3, The Kangarooster Beckons, The Ambiguous Camel, Dissonant, James 2, The Epic of Port Gunnel 1, The Secret Rhythm of the Universe, Port Gunnel, and the finale, Our New Horn. This one I did listen to of all these early stuff on YouTube, and it's got it made me think of like early AFI, that just kind of punk
Okay.
sound, especially with the vocals. I was like, which, I've talked about before, we're not punk people. Okay, let me back. I'm not a punk person. I don't know. I don't want to really speak too much for you, but
Elements
comes and
of
goes for you. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my heart
Well,
is in hardcore because what do I say, Curtis?
positive message, or not positive message, but the punk brings a problem, but there's no solution. Hardcore brings a problem, but there is a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Punk is the problem. Hardcore was the solution.
There you go. Following up that demo would come two more demos, Josh. 2001's I Am a Small Wooden Statue on a Patch of Crabgrass Next to a Dried Up Riverbed, which to me sounds like a early Listener album. If you know, you know. Dan!
I can see the words inside your silence, but I can't speak about your pain for you.
Which is funny too, because every once in a while, when Nathan's doing his vocals later on, or even just kind of looking at him sometimes, I think of Dan from Listener.
Okay.
So, songs on this album included Bunnies, The Bunt, The Immense Defecation of the Bunt, The Hammer of Opter Omlokadish. Close enough. The Greatest
Whatever.
Weights. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's a throwaway. And then we had 2002's Beautiful Songs by Men EP. Now, this one, Josh, this demo would be the one to garner some attention from a smaller label, which would help release future albums. Songs on this one included Bunnies, The Legend of the Flower of Woe, The Hammer of Optimrominimius, The Immense Defecation of the Buntalufficus, The Greatest Weight, In the Wake of the Buntalufficus, and The Buntalufficus. But by the time recording had finished on their last demo, Josh, a major change would occur, as longtime vocalist Adam Crook would leave the band, paving the way for then bassist and at one point drummer Nathan Weineke to take the reins at vocals, which would allow new bassist Andy Stokes to join. Finally, Josh, at a stable point with their lineup and a label to back the band, it was time to release their first official full-length album, the one right behind Josh, 2003's R. Borlax from Pluto Records. Self-produced by the band, it is the last album for bassist Andy Stokes and Jason Caruza on drums. This album would be re-released 4 years later with bonus tracks, and author Hyper Violet of SputnikMusic.com wrote a review of the debut album stating, quote, Horse the Band is, as the name might suggest, an anomaly. They pull from the beautiful 8-bit sounds of my childhood video games and place them in frantic, discombobulated metal tracks. In our Borlax, this results in the conflicting attributes of babbling, incoherent nonsense and masterful brilliance that can only be found in the most established set pieces. Seven Tentacles and Eight Flames begins the bombardment of bizarre vocals, dancing synths, punk drum beats, and heavy, down-tuned guitar. The vocalist constantly transitions between yells and shrieks and rarely strays from the topic of NES video games. He fits with the music perfectly, but his sophomoric delivery has a tendency to expound the grating and chaotic nature of the album a little too much. At 110 enters the most baffling element of Horace the Band's music. The drum beats slow and the musicians erupt into an unbelievably inspired interlude. Buzzing bass lines, slick guitar, catchy keys, and drum fills galore exemplify one of the most cohesive jam sessions you'll ever hear. And then as quickly as it came, the beautiful interlude leaves, and Horse the Band delves back into their obscure brand of metal, thus illuminates the contradiction of Horse the Band. It is likely they are a covert group of seasoned veterans disguised as a silly Nintendo core band. The lyrics only further emphasize this juxtaposition. The next track, Cutsman, has an overall more accessible ring to it and contains another of the standout moments of the album. After an abruptly dark and heavy breakdown, the song transitions into wonderfully layered synth and a mock drum beat. The vocals come in with Little Android Man, born without a soul, without a voice of reason, scissors to control. Little Android Man, born without a heart, if he's in your vicinity, he'll cut you apart. Is he talking about the villain of the NES video game Mega Man, or is he describing a sociopath from his life who ravaged him? Is this an amateur band of talented teens or a cynical group of grizzled musicians? I don't know. Our Borlax has plenty of standout moments and plenty of not standout moments. But you have to give them credit for pursuing a style that is truly their own and attaining a distinctive sound. Something as simple as the forceful tone of the breakdowns in Purple and Big Blue Violence adds an extra edge to the atmosphere and lyrics that would otherwise be forgettable. It also helps that these two songs contain interludes that could be infinitely looped, and I would be internally entertained. Songs on this album include Seven Tentacles and Eight Flames, Cutsman, In the Wake of the Bunt, Stabbers of the Knife by Kenny Peltz, Bunnies, Purple, Handsome Shoved His Gloves, The Immense Defecation of the Buntalufficus, Paul's Voice, and the finale Big Blue Violence, with bonus tracks The Legend of the Flower of Woe and Kangarooster 4057. Josh, the debut album, Our Borlax, give it to me.
In my opinion, Our Borlax and The Mechanical Hand are probably their two best albums. Um, you could make the
Interesting.
argument that most of their stuff sounds pretty much the same, just album to album. But in the later ones, like Natural Death, that's kind of a throwaway album to me.
What?
Yeah, there's like a little bit,
Man.
like there's a couple spots in there that have like some kind of cool stuff. I think I saved a couple things, but it's like for the most part, it's like okay. And like the
Mm.
pizza EP, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
okay, a couple tracks of that. I'm like, all right, I get it, guys. Thanks.
I get it. You like pizza. You ate
Um,
pizza, you had a good experience. Got it.
but our Borlax and the Mechanical Hands feel like this is kind of the peak for the band.
Okay. Okay.
Um, it feels the
I
most cohesive to me.
yeah, I agree with what you're saying about across the board, their sound stays the same. I mean, all the albums are basically the same sound wise. I think the only difference is you get a tighter sound as you go production wise. I do think that they stay pretty true to who they are, from our Borlax on and everything.
Yeah.
My thing is I like all four albums. Don't get me wrong. And our Borlax, that's the one that introduced me to Horse the Band. But my two favorites are Mechanical Hand and Natural Death.
Natural Death is one of your
Yeah,
favorites?
that's why I was like, I don't understand. Like,
The vocals
he's
are horseshit through most of it, bro.
okay. Hmm.
He's just
I'm not
doing this. Like, it's
not the
not
whole time.
for a good chunk of it. He does some of his
There's some
normal
of it he does
vocals,
that, man.
but like he goes, I don't know. It throws the whole thing off.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Hey, to each his own, right?
And I don't know. Our Borlex definitely has some nostalgia to it, but I think I like the synth on our Borlax more than any other album.
Oh man. See, that was one thing that I really liked about Natural Death was that Game Boy kind of 8-bit sound of the synth through most of it.
Okay.
But man, this is good. This sucks.
No. Okay, so listen.
This sucks.
Sex Raptor is one of my favorite Horse the Band songs.
Of course.
Um, the synth, like in that song,
It's a good 80s synth.
yeah, going back through Horse the Band, it really made me want to get another keyboard because I was like, oh man, like this
Crap.
is so great. Plus, also too, like I realized like way too late that my best vocals were the more like chaotic, like forced yell
Those are
kind
the
of
best.
vocals. And yeah, I feel like I realized way too late that that was my sweet spot. Because I would have loved to be in a band like this. That was just like more chaos and just kind of like a synth would have been amazing. I was
Right.
always into those like local bands like Fall of Kid Icarus or like Blue Eyed Boy Death Machine that would have somebody playing synth.
Right.
I always thought that was so cool. So yeah, I would have loved to be in a band like this.
We could both agree that in this band the synth drives the bus
Oh yeah,
easily. I mean, it lives and dies by the synth.
yeah.
And
Which
Eric
is like
does such a
very
great job at it too, man.
yeah, which is very different from other genres that you'd like find a synth in, like black metal. Like
Right.
it's more,
It
it's
adds
not at the
depth.
forefront. Yeah, most of the time.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that. It's
it's
just creating depth.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the few bands that do this, your Arsonists Get All the Girls, your Dance Club Massacre, um, your Horse the Band. It's just it's very unique. It's very niche.
Right. Niche. Alrighty. Well, that's 2003's debut, our Borlax. Shortly after the release of our Borlax, drummer Jason Caruso would leave the band for the last time, being replaced by Eli Green. Now, over the next 2 years, Josh, the band would continue to grow their brand through their live shows, starting with an impressive 85 shows in 90 days, spanned over the summer of 2004 and across 7 countries in North America and Europe. Woof. Dang, man. Woof. But, I mean, you want to do it?
What did it all add up to, Curtis, in the end?
Nothing.
Nothing.
This tour would be called
We love
Horse.
you guys, but
Yeah.
we're
Horse
just we're
the
just two
World
guys.
Tour. Yeah.
25,000 monthly listeners. That's not terrible.
No, not terrible, man. Not terrible. In the middle of 2004, Andy Stokes, bassist, would leave the band, being replaced by Dashiell Arkenstone. And it was also at this time that friend of the band, Ed Edge, would also become a staple at their live shows, playing, drumroll please. Oh yeah, that's right. The stream deck doesn't work. Oh man. Sorry, I had to poke the bear.
This meeting is over.
No. Ed Edge would become a
Was
staple at
that
their
guy's
live
last name
shows.
Arkenstone?
Arkenstone.
Was that his last name?
Yeah, the new bassist. Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
That's the King's Jewel from Lord of the Rings.
Nice. Nice.
Or from the Hobbit, I guess.
Uh, okay, Ed Edge would join the band at their live shows, live show performer only, playing the Electric Triangle, Josh.
This podcast is over.
It's funny too because
We're done here.
I watched part of a live set. I think they were doing it in England. I don't remember what year it was, but he comes up and he's just like in the middle of the stage and he's just like "Yeah," banging along with it. Doesn't really seem like he's got too much rhythm to it or anything. And then I was like, okay, that was the beginning of the set. And I fast forward to like middle of the set, he's still in the same spot, just yeah. It was like, okay, why?
It's like a tambourine. It's totally unnecessary.
Yeah, that was so unnecessary.
They have a drummer,
During
right? All right, yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. During touring, the band would also begin to write new material for their sophomore release, 2005's The Mechanical Hand, this time from Combat Records. Produced by Matt Bales, who has done work with Classic Crime, ISIS, Pearl Jam. No, when I say ISIS, I mean the band, not the not the terrorist group. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Pearl Jam, Norma Jean, Mastodon, and many others. This is the only album to feature drummer Eli Green, and there are several allusions found throughout this album, Josh, such as the title of the album giving reference to the mechanical hound found in the novel Fahrenheit 451. While the phoenix on the album cover is also a reference to the phoenix crest worn by the future firefighters in the same novel. You had that book, didn't you?
hmm
Okay, do you still have that book?
The firefighters. They
Okay.
burned books. They burned books in Fahrenheit 451. That was what the firefighters did.
Gotcha. I didn't get to read it.
Yeah, that's their job. They're like fucking bizarro world firefighters. They burn books.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha. It's opposite day.
It is a
We're
good one. I would
we're
recommend
fire
it.
starters,
I've
not
read it many
fighters.
times.
You still have it?
I'm sure it's up in there somewhere.
Okay. Well, I might have to borrow it. The song title Birdo is in reference to the Super Mario Bros. 2 character Birdo, while A Million Exploding Suns is a reference to the Marvel comic book character the Sentry, just to name a few for you, Josh. Johnny Loftus of AllMusic.com wrote a review of the album stating, quote, "Our Borlax, Horse the Band's 2003 debut, was a splintered and explosive feat to Nintendo Power Glove fantasism powered by raucous post-hardcore. Dubbed Nintendo Core by the California band, the album didn't always work. It wasn't purely realized enough to match the wiry post-rock video game themes rocked by the Advantage, and its grabs at metal, hardcore, and basic noise were too disjointed. Were listeners supposed to laugh or rock out? Well, 2005's Mechanical Hand fine-tunes Horse the Band's entire operation. Eric Engstrom's keyboard still guides these songs and often recalls the mechanistic, gawky robot feel of 80s video game music. But Engstrom and Horse the Band recall the 1980s in general too. Manatee is incredible. It starts out by ripping off the same tubular Duran Duran groove that's responsible for the Killers, but shifts harshly into an angular post-hardcore screech, like a noisier version of what Fugazi were doing a decades in. Horse aren't finished. Manatee goes on to crash soft synth melodies into righteous hardcore, and despite their jarry parts and sounds, Mechanical Hand never sounds as fragmented as our Borlax. The experiments continue. Arrows whiz by, men scream, and drawn swords rattle over the rolling snare of Heroes Die intro. It soon becomes a monolithic metal trudge. Shades of Iron Maiden, Brainiac, White Zombie converge, Dog, Doug, and Mario Kart bear their teeth on House of God and Octopus on Fire. The keyboard stabs away, the guitars ring with something approaching anthemic or at least thick-headed glory, and Nathan Weineke's vocals go from yowl to growl to snark in the twist of an elbow. Horse the band have to be kidding with portions of Hand, trying to skewer some of the more serious types in metal circles. Lars Volta and System of a Down come to mind. The lyric sheet takes pains to write out every elongated word. I want the change. And there are a few couplets like "Sleep well, mechanical thing. You were fun for a while, but now I'm gonna go get a burrito." But with so many bands, especially the heavy ones, pulling out concept record tags or just generally being pretentious, some kidding can be pretty refreshing. And that the music on this one is a quality notch above Horse the Band's promising debut makes Mechanical Hand even better. Songs on this sophomore release include Birdo, A Million Exploding Suns, Manatine, The House of Boo, Heroes Die, Softer Sounds, Octopus on Fire, Soaring Quails, Taken by Vultures, A Rusty Glove, Sand, Lord Gold, Throne Room, and the finale, The Black Hole. What does it for you, Josh, on the Mechanical Hand?
Eggs.
Yay!
Eggs.
Eggs.
That, that was a pretty
Burp.
great start to the album.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of the things that you said you liked about the next album are great about this album. They really go 8-bit in this one, you know?
That's what I was saying for me, where you were saying our Borlax and Mechanical Hand are your favorite. Mechanical Hand and Natural Death are my favorites.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love this one, man. Oh,
Heroes
don't even get me
Die.
started on Heroes Die, bro. That's a
Like
good one.
the first couple arrow shots like are so good because he's like just playing on the snare, and then the first one, well, because they're like kind of far apart, so like at
Right.
first when you hear it, you're like, wait,
What
was
was
that? And then you hear the next one, you're like,
Ah.
oh, okay, like that's
just when you're trying to figure out was that an arrow, you get shot with one.
yeah.
Oh God. And then you get
So
shot with another one.
that was pretty great. It made me think of Sean Bean in Game of Thrones, where he's watching Arya do her first sword lesson, and like
Right.
the clack of the wood eventually like changes to the clash of steel, and he's
PTSD.
reliving every
He's back in
horrible
Nam.
battle he was in. The Siege of Pike, the Battle of the Trident.
Welcome back to the Throne of the Dragon podcast.
We are back.
What a great transition.
But yeah, really cool track. They do a lot of cool things like that. There's one or two in Natural Death that are they're like little interludes, but they're like kind of black metal-y sounding horror movie. It's like it's more of a electric organ sound that he's using. Um and I like a lot of those too. Um yeah, Mechanical Hand is just like they keep a lot of the elements that I like about our Borlax, but like the synth's more gamey, it's more 8-bitty.
Mm.
And then it doesn't feel as chaotic.
It's tightened up, and I think you have to give credit to actually having a producer
Right.
instead of just doing it yourself.
And there's a couple chaotic tracks like Taken by Vultures. That one's
Mm.
kind of a chaotic track, but a lot of the ones on this one sound, I don't necessarily want to say more cohesive.
More structured.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to, when I was thinking about the differences between albums and stuff, it's
Mm,
hard to really pinpoint and I guess do justice to a lot of this talking about it because like we haven't really come across a band yet where I would sit here and say it's just easier for you to listen to it than for me to try to explain it to you
right.
because this is just going to sound like nonsense.
What the hell is he saying?
Yeah, so this is new territory, I feel like, for us.
Okay.
And as far as trying to like break some of these things down,
Right, yeah.
it's hard to categorize a lot of this.
Right. Just best just to do as best you can.
Right.
And I think you've done that so far. I think you've done a good job. I think we both have. So, yeah. But I agree with you. I think it is one of those where how do I paint this picture for you and in the end not make you kind of tilt your head going, what? What? I don't understand.
Right.
I think you're right. I think it's one of those where in the end you really I mean we always encourage to go back and listen to these bands. You know, we're just kind of a guide, a very a very piss poor tour guide.
Yeah.
Half
Man,
drunk tour guide, you know.
you know what I just realized? How have we been leaving Inner Shikari off of
Oh, don't worry.
our like list? Well, no, our list of like bands in this space.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we just haven't like mentioned them at all, like when we're mentioning bands like kind of in this space.
Oh, okay. I was about to say I've talked about him several times in like albums that I've listened to or whatever because I do enjoy me some Inner Shikari.
I'm just surprised they haven't come up over our last couple of episodes, especially with the people we've been
Gotcha. Oh,
talking
with the
about,
synth and
you know.
everything. Let's talk about Inner Shikari. You want to, Josh? What's your favorite Inner Shikari album? How many have you
Uh,
actually listened to?
Probably just their first couple.
Okay. Take
You
to
were
the
always more
Sky and
into them
then
than me.
yeah, I can't remember what the second one's called. Common Dreads, Common Threads.
Sky
I don't know,
Eats
whatever.
Airplane? Why didn't we talk about Sky Eats Airplane?
I don't
Now
know,
they're all
man.
coming out of the woodwork.
They're
I'm
all
like, oh my
coming out,
God.
man. Oh crap. Remember that one bit? If it had a synth, it's gonna get mentioned.
It's a shame that on most of their albums, it starts out with pretty high listenership, and then after a couple tracks, it's down to like barely anything, and it never
Right.
really recovers. And it just kind of sucks because like one of my favorite tracks on this album is Black Hole. So it's like,
It's a good
and
finish, man.
it's one of the least listened to tracks on the album.
Yeah.
And it's like because it's just at the end, and people listened to the first like three or four tracks and decided, eh.
What's their what's their most listened album? Is it Desperate Living? Just I would say I'm guessing that because being on a bigger label, but
Um,
no.
no, it
Okay. Is
probably
it Art
has.
Borlax then?
No, no, no. Our
Oh,
Borlax is
Natural
actually
Death?
really low.
Okay. Natural
Um,
Death?
Mechanical Hand is actually higher than Desperate Living, I would say.
Okay.
And then Natural Death, it might be less plays than, well, I don't know that with Murder being close to 2 million, it might
Right.
put it around the same as Mechanical Hand.
Okay.
But Mechanical Hand has the most consistency. The first two
Okay.
tracks are almost 1 million each, and then almost 500,000 on the third. And then we're bouncing back between 250 and like 180 for a lot of this. There's Lord Gold Throne Room is at almost 600,000. Black Hole is almost 300.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I would say like Mechanical Hand is probably the most listened to, at least on
Consistent.
Spotify.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, all the way up though, Curtis, to Natural Death. Like we're still in the age of CDs.
Right. And that's always the thing we have to take in consideration. Spotify is not even a thing, you know, at that time.
Still
So yeah,
several
we're
years later.
definitely yeah. So a lot of this too is like backlog of people getting on it. Like I'm gonna listen to Horse of the Band, or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, that's another thing. Kind of have to. It's an asterisk. An asterisk. Yeah.
It would have been
Alrighty, that.
funny to have been doing this show like when Spotify first came around,
Oh my
because
gosh,
they would be
man.
going through and be like, "Oh, this album actually has 0 listens. Oh,
Nobody's
hey, it's
listening to
got
this?
two. It's got two from
Oh,
us."
wait a
Yeah.
minute. Oh man. All right, that's a 2005's The Mechanical Hand. Success saw the band join both the 2006 Vans Warped Tour along with the Sounds of the Underground tour, and it was around this time that drummer Eli Green would be replaced by Chris Prophet on drums. While on tour with Gatsby's American Dream and Portugal the Man, the band would abruptly remove themselves from tour in favor of recording a concept EP, 2006's Pizza EP from Koch Records, produced by Dan Koch. The band has stated on their MySpace that, quote, "We left that tour because we ate really, really, really good pizza in Lou Malnati's in Chicago with Dave's grandparents. The pizza was such that we were inspired by God to write music of the kind not heard in this world since Mozart was fed his first currywurst." Now, fast forward 2 years later, Josh, in 2008, an interview with the dreaded press, keyboardist Eric Engstrom would state that if he could delete anything from Horse the Band's catalog, it would be the Pizza EP. Womp, womp, womp. It just feels
I
like one of
think
those where
maybe
it's like
just a
you sit
couple
there.
songs about pizza would have
Well,
been enough.
yeah, I was about to say, it just feels like with the way that this band is and how silly they are, I mean, you could have, like you're saying, you could have just wrote like a couple of songs and just like just throw them in the middle of an album. Why do you feel like you have to make an EP for it?
Right.
You know, it just kind of
Uh,
feels like a waste.
did you, before we go past it, did you
Mhm.
notice the um Caldor and Waldorf bit at the end of Black Hole? Or I'm sorry, Statler and Waldorf.
Um, Still on Black Hole though, right?
Yeah, it's at the very end of
Okay,
Black Hole.
like the very, very end.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I love that.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I had to remember what it was for a second there. Oh yeah, classic Muppets.
They have a bunch of great sound clips, dude. I will say too, this is hilarious. On A Natural Death, the beach is literally just a girl crying
What?
like
Yeah,
at
I
the
did not
beach.
understand that. Did not understand that one
I
at
think
all,
it's
man.
supposed to be ironic because it's like you're at the
The
beach,
beach is
like you
supposed to
should
be
be having a great
happy.
time, and it's just someone crying at like a great place, you know?
Oh man. The Pizza EP was limited to 500 editions.
Thank God.
Um, yeah, they would be pressed in the 10-inch vinyl formats and sold in cardboard pizza boxes. That's kind of cool.
That is kind of
I'll
cool.
give them that one. Songs on the CP include Anti-Pizza, Crippled by Pizza, Pizzeria and the Pizzeria, Where Pizza, Pizza Knife, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What a waste. We both agree. A couple of songs, throw them on your next album. Just call it a day. Just call it a day. There's really no need for this. Was there really a need to stop touring and gaining money to really like waste money on this?
No.
No.
On a pizza EP?
On a
No,
pizza
Curtis.
EP. After a release of their Italian dish influenced EP, the band would return to road to finish out 2006. At the beginning of 2007, the band would head back into the studio to record a new record. And don't worry, Josh, it's not related to food. 2007's A Natural Death from Koch Records, produced by Brian Virtue, who has done work with Finch, Chevelle, 30 Seconds to Mars, and many others. This is the only full-length album for Chris Prophet on drums and is the last for Dishill Arkenstone on bass. This album peaked at number 4 on the top Heatseekers chart and number 27 on the Independent Albums chart. In an interview with MTV, frontman Nathan Weineke talked about the meaning behind the album, stating, quote, "A natural death is about the futility and arrogance of creation and destruction, the overwhelming scale of space and time, and the brutal majesty of nature, the horror of birth, and the beauty of death. Everyone who will ever live will die a natural death and will soon after be forgotten for eternity. Hopefully, this album will serve as a warning to the human race to stop taking itself so seriously, as we have seen the dire consequences of its actions in the future. You are nothing." Andrew Leahy of AllMusic.com wrote a review of the album stating, quote, "By using special keyboards that mimic the 8-bit sound of early Nintendo games, Horse the Band has built a career on combining retro NES sounds with the metallic thud of noise rock. A Natural Death continues that tradition. The liner notes even list the Game Boy as one of Eric Engstrom's 3 instruments. But the arrival of replacement drummer Chris, exactly, beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, beep. The arrival of replacement drummer Chris Prophet has also strengthened the band's metal tendencies. Prophet's drumming is feverishly precise, a flurry of crisp 16th notes and brain-jolting snare hits, and the band seems newly energized and perhaps a bit more diligent, not unlike a classroom's reaction to a demanding new teacher as a result. Lyrics that would normally incite laughter, i.e., don't feed the bears, or the bears will feed on you, are now more likely to incite mosh pits, with frontman Nathan Weineke furthering the harsh atmosphere in a guttural growling voice, Josh's favorite. It's impressive and often downright scary, which is likely the result this band is looking to generate. Of course, the Nintendo influence is still there. Sandwiched between the band's hardcore riffage are those unforgettable sounds from the 80s, including the nostalgic warping noise that Mario used to make. The bizarrely titled Sex Raptor takes things a step further, adding a touch of Duran Duran to what could otherwise pass as a B-side from Mega Man 2. Keeping up with this game can be difficult. At 16 tracks, it's a long album, but A Natural Death is still oddly enjoyable, striking a balance between novel and novelty. If that doesn't float your boat, perhaps the joke's on you, Josh. Songs on this album include Hyperborea Murder, The Startling Secrets of Super Sapphire, The Beach, Face of Bear, Crickets, New York City, Sex Raptor, Broken Trail, The Red Tornado, Treasure Train, His Purple Majesty, Kangarooster Meadows, Rotting Horse. I think we are both suffering from the same crushing metaphysical crisis, and the finale track, Liff, with a bonus track, Crowtown. Natural Death, Josh. I will agree with this. Or well, no, I guess it wouldn't be agree. I'm differing on what the reviewer said about his guttural growling voice, which is what you're talking about earlier. And he says it's impressive and often downright scary. There's nothing scary about that.
Has he heard
Nothing.
of Lorna Shore?
Well, not even that. I mean, we just talked about a band in the last episode, with some nice gutturals, with between Remy Rodberg and Cameron Reed, whichever one was doing them. Maybe both. I don't know. They had some nice gutturals. This not so much.
No,
Um,
those are not
I
his strong suit.
yeah. Okay. So which do you? Because I wanted to ask you off the top. You're talking about the little interlude tracks or whatever.
Uh-huh.
With the were you talking about like the beach and crickets and I think Broken Trail? I think is another one.
Broken Trail and Rotting Horse.
Okay. I was about to say crickets is just like a
It's like spoken word poetry.
spoken
That's like
word. Yeah, this
exactly
was
what
like
it is. Yeah.
listener. Is this listener? What's happening?
No, it's definitely what was happening there.
Yeah.
Okay, let me rescind my earlier statement. I don't feel like this is a throwaway album. This is still a pretty good album by Horse the Band. But his low vocals on this album like are just so off-putting that like I think it really brings down a lot of parts of the album for me.
Okay.
Whereas if he wasn't using them, I think it would have been infinitely better for me. But I'll tell you, I like The Beach. I like Murder.
He
I
loves it when women cry.
like Face of Bear, Crickets, Sex Raptor. I told you Sex Raptor is one of my favorite Horse the Band songs. Um, Broken Trail and Rotting Horse are both cool. I really like Rotting Horse. I think the name is great,
Yeah.
especially for like a
For
creepy interlude like that.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Kangaroo Rooster Meadows. All right, let's pay homage to the past for sure.
Yeah.
And then Red Tornado is okay. But I like most of this album, but god damn, his low vocals are just so off-putting to me.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean they don't like I said, I'm not a fan. I don't agree with the reviewer saying it's scary, but unlike you, it doesn't kill it for me, you know, or off. It's not off-putting to me.
It's off-putting. It
I'll tell you
doesn't
what's
ruin the album for me.
yeah, I'll tell you what's off-putting is, and it's not all the time, but and I know it's probably a combination of having to do some of the rough vocals that he does. Um, but oh my gosh, his singing voice at times is just sometimes unbearable. And other times it's okay. Like the breakdown part where it kind of slows down, he's singing on New York City. Um, that sounds fine to me. There was one, I think it was the final track on Your Fault EP, which I think was the cover, Nine Inch Nails cover, that he does some like cleans, and I'm like, oh dear God, is nobody else able to sing in this band? Because it's
Yeah.
terrible, you know. And I mean, at times I feel like it works for them because it's not too unbearable and it kind of fits like their chaotic style and with his vocal style too. But yeah, sometimes it's like, ugh. But
But dude, like what in a band like this,
Mhm.
okay, we'll make this comparison. A band like Alisana, in their mind, they are doing very good on the vocals. And like they're singing, their clean vocals are great. Like they've got great registers.
Oh yeah,
But um their ugly vocals are not great. And especially those first few albums, I feel like to them, they think they're doing a great job. The
right,
difference here is that I can never tell what Horse the Band is actually trying to do, you know?
right.
So, because, okay, let's go to the Pizza EP, the last track, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle track.
Mhm.
Uh, at the end, they're all working to a harmony eventually, but they are singing off of the normal parts. Like they're singing out of key for sure
Right,
for like a good chunk there, and then they bring it all together. So I can never tell when they're intentionally doing something bad,
right.
you know?
And I think with something like that too, I think you're right. Because like you sit there and you think, wait, is that on purpose or are they not doing that on purpose or are they doing that on purpose? And it's just kind of like lending to kind of a creepy sound that they're trying to go for, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, it is hard for me to say because I do not doubt that they know what they're doing. It's just like I feel like a good part of this band is like, hey, fuck you. You know, like in like
Well,
everything they write, they're just like, hey,
yeah.
hey, a gay guy, fuck you.
It is
So the
like
fact that
Oprah just
like,
giving those out, man.
yeah, so the fact that the thought that they would do something like that, like the track, the beach,
Mhm.
like that is nothing other than to be like ironic.
Right. Yeah.
Like you'd think a song called "The Beach" would be, it would sound like "Ride the Wave" by Arsenic and All the Girls, but nope, just ambient textures, the sounds of the ocean, and a girl crying
Enjoy. Masterpiece.
for
2 minutes?
a minute 7 seconds.
Yeah, close.
So,
I didn't mention it earlier, but I think it was the R. Borlaug's review. The guy said, it was talking about, I was wondering if this is a band that's like kind of like a undercover band where they're doing silly stuff, but they're really good musicians. I was like, yeah, I could see that. This almost feels like a side project, not in the sense of like, well, just the fact of like we're good musicians, but like we're just having fun with it. We're just doing what we want to do, you
right.
know, and we're just not taking it seriously, but in a good way. But yeah,
Yeah. It feels like most of this music is written in like
the
with
key of crazy.
sarcastic overtones, you know?
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are gonna love this happy song about the beach.
Cue the crying girl. Oh man.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of their music is just a big middle finger.
Yeah. Sometimes two middle fingers.
Yeah.
I got him double. I got him double. Got him for both sides of the room. All right, that is 2007's A Natural Death. After release of their newest album, the band would tour here and there to finish out the year so they could focus on preparing for a self-funded, self-booked, and self-promoted worldwide tour in 2008 called Earth Tour, which would see the band play 47 countries in 90 days. Sound familiar, Josh? Sounds very familiar
Because they did it already.
because they already did it. But in early 2008, Chris Profits would leave Horse the band, which led the group to ask drummer John Carell of the band The Number 12 Looks Like You to step in for the entire tour. The band would catalog their tour in video format, later releasing the 10-hour 7 DVD set to the public and even submitting it into the 2010's South by Southwest Film Festival. Nothing came of it. Once the tour had finished, DeShill Arkenstone on bass would leave the band, eventually being replaced by Brian Grover of the band of Thriller. John Carell's time with the band had finished, and he would go back to his original band since he was just a substitute for the tour, eventually being replaced by Daniel Pouliot on drums. Dreams would come true, Josh, for the band at the beginning of 2009, as they would be signed to Vagrant Records, a label the group stated they had been trying to sign with for over 9 years. Dreams do come true, Josh. If you believe hard enough, you can make an album with a label you've been dying to deal with and then just disappear. Stepping back into the studio once again, the boys would release their latest full-length album, 2009's Desperate Living, from Vagrant Records, produced by Noah Shane, who has done work with Atreyu, Dead Sarah, and many others. This is the only album for bassist Brian Grover, and it peaked at number 125 on the Billboard 200. The album sees a departure from the band's reliance on the Nintendo Core sound, which predominantly defined their earlier records. Instead, Desperate Living explores more experimental qualities. Author DeBizzles of SputnikMusic.com dives straight into a review of the album, stating, quote, Horse's songwriting is at an absolute peak here, exceeding A Natural Death by far a mere 2 years later. We see the band hopping from blistering verses and breakdowns to dance party synth lines and back again without ever feeling jarring. Eric Engstrom's performance on keyboard easily ranks among the most impressive in metal. The band's ability to seamlessly integrate Lord Gold's remarkably distinct and wonky keys consistently throughout the album is a wonder on its own, but even more impressive is how those tones almost offset the desperate wails of Nathan. The guy is having a complete nervous breakdown with bright passages of stuttering beeps serving as a backdrop, and it works perfectly. Tracks like Golden Mummy, Golden Bird, and Arrive should make bands like Between the Buried and Me embarrassed for taking themselves so seriously, as blending different sounds can seemingly work so easily when you're not trying so hard to flex your genre palette. Conversely, The Failure of All Things, Horse the Song, and Big Business give a nice nod to the Horse faithful while managing to put on an original core songwriting clinic to which no one is paying any attention. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that I put Desperate Living right alongside the Always Open Mouth, Relationship of Command, the opposite of December, or even You Fail Me. The album is that good. Sure, silly tracks like Science Police and Lord Goldwan of Unyielding. What's happening?
Did you just say that he put this album in the same category as Converge's You Fail Me?
I assume that's one he's talking about, right? Is there any other You Family albums out there?
This podcast is over.
Third time is a charm, right? Uh,
Good God. Who is
yeah.
this?
So
Who said
let me
these
say
things?
this, Josh. He says that because, quote, the album is that good. Sure, silly tracks like Science Police and Lord Goldwan of Unyielding stick out a bit among the more serious songs, but that's just what Horse do. They make the best of a bad situation by at least trying to make you smile. Even if they're goofy, misunderstood Nintendo or make Josh bite his knuckles. Even there, if their goofy, misunderstood Nintendo Core was probably never going to take them anywhere, and even if they had to book their own world tour, yeah, that really happened. Or if they have to come down from this only to work crappy day jobs for the rest of their lives, at least with this album, they can be proud to say they made something on their own. If you look close enough, Josh, you'll find a band worth rooting for and songs worth hearing again and 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 again and
All
again.
right, you're done.
And that's not only special, but an achievement the band should never overlook, even if almost everyone else does. Songs on this album include Cloud Walker, Desperate Living featuring John Carell on drums, The Failure of All Things, Horse the Song featuring Kay Slacks, Science Police, Shape Shift featuring Jamie Stewart of Zuzu, Between the Trees, Golden Mummy, Golden Bird, Lord Goldwan of Unyielding, Big Business, Rape Escape featuring Valentina Lucista on piano, and the finale track, Arrive. Well, Josh, compared to Converge, You Fail Me. I don't know where I was going with that. I just wanted to throw another jab at you. Do you know what the other albums were? Like who?
Read them back to me.
The Always Open Mouth, Relationship of Command, the opposite of December.
The opposite of December, isn't that Poison the Well?
Let me see.
You look up the first two.
Yeah. Oh, I'm already looking up opposite of December.
Oh, okay.
Opposite of December, A Season of Separation. Yeah, Poison the Well.
Yep. Nice.
Yep. Nice. Okay, let's see what else. The Always Open Mouth.
The Always Open Mouth.
Oh, Fear Before the March of Flames.
Oh, okay.
When I
I was
read
never that into them.
yeah, when I read that, I kept thinking the very first album from A Life Once Lost. Oh, was it Open Your Mouth for something? I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I don't remember the name of the album.
Well, I think you and I kept saying it backwards too, so that doesn't help.
Open your eyes and shut your butt.
Basically, the other one, Relationship of Command, is At the Drive-In.
Oh, yeah, I don't really care for At the Drive-In either. Also, we're comparing At the Drive-In and Converge.
That's what, when you said that, I was like, oh, shoot. Why are we comparing these albums? These are two totally different genres.
Curtis, it goes Jane Doe, it goes You Fail Me for most people. For me, it goes You Fail Me, Jane Doe. So I'm really
Casey.
upset. I'm really upset by their comparison of this album with You Fail Me.
On a
Did
scale of 1 to 10 of being 10 being the ultra pissed, how pissed are you?
I'm at a 9, Curtis. I'm at a
Okay, I was
9.
about, okay, let me ask you a different way. Uh, Coupling in how the episode began, how pissed are you now to add the comparison of You Family from Converge to this album on top of that?
Like a 13.
It's been a terrible day.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Um, that is really disappointing, man. Okay, let me give you my thoughts on this album.
Yeah, don't think about Converge.
The
Throw that to
reason
the side.
this album I'm not a huge fan of is all the reasons that he mentioned. There's this is not the same band, you know?
Hmm.
Um, I appreciate the couple homage tracks, and Horse the Song is a great song. I love that. Uh, and what was it? Big Business? Like, yeah, it's an okay track. The ones that kind of pay homage to the old sound,
Right.
I really like. But without that, what's going on here? We're just like a kind of a
Kind of an
weird,
indie thing.
yeah,
And
progressive indie.
I think the album artwork fits that too.
Yeah. I don't know. It just this album doesn't do it for me because they've changed the sound now.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of like, eh.
Okay. Okay. I don't hate it. I mean, I'm with you on what you're saying.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not that it's a bad album because I don't
yeah,
think it is. Like it's still well put together and it's definitely their best produced album.
yeah. If I'm gonna
But
listen to Horse the band though, even like a single track, I'm not picking anything off it. I'm not seeking anything out from this album.
maybe
You
Horse the
know,
Song.
maybe Horse the song. Um, but yeah, probably not anything off of this album really. I'll be
That's
going back
about
to the
it.
earlier ones, man.
Yeah. Um and they all have like cool elements. Like I like the synth and stuff, but the way every song's structured, you almost feel like you're about to hear a chorus like on every song, you know?
Just wait, here comes the chorus.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff. On Rape Escape, Valentina's piano stuff there is really cool.
Yeah, it was good.
I like Between the Trees. I actually do like that song. I feel like that one's it's more of their
Solid,
new sound, but I do like the sound of it. Um, yeah, this overall this one's just not a hit for me. Um,
and Spotify reflects that
yeah, they just kind of
with
gotten
an
away
asterisk.
from what made them popular, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting when you go right after this. I mean, this is '09. 2 years later, they just dip. So it makes you kind of wonder if this was not received very well among
This
their
is the
fan
album
base.
we will be remembered for
Davey Havoc.
for the worse.
For the worse. Touring in support of Desperate Living would commence, and soon after finishing the tour, Brian Grover on bass would depart from the band, being replaced by Jeremiah Big Nell. And like I just said, unexpectedly, in 2011, when things were moving along for the band, the five-piece quietly went on hiatus. Now, over the next several years, reunions and short tours would occur until 2017, when the band would perform a brand new song that would later be called A Reason to Live to live audiences. Shortly after that, through their social media accounts, the band would tease that new music was on its way, later announcing that a new EP would be crowd-funded by Ethereum Smart Contract, which would disperse Ether cryptocurrency to the band members as payment for making progress on the album. A lot different from what we're used to with the fundraiser type stuff. When I read that, I thought this sounds shady.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it is, Josh, because soon after the announcement, the band's social media went inactive again, leaving the fans wondering what happened. Some would speculate that the band would come upon issues with funding via Ether cryptocurrency due to the 2018 cryptocurrency crash shortly after the announcement of the EP. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't
Probably.
surprise me one bit. Several years later, Josh, the band would communicate to their fans that the EP was back on and would be released soon, leading to 2020's release of Your Fault EP from Liff Records, which I can only assume that may be like their own little thing because Liff is was the last track on Natural Death. So I'm wondering if they have their own little record label dealio now to put out their albums. So.
Okay.
Which is the goal, right, Josh? To
Yep.
self-release. And hey, they self-produced this album, going back to the old days. We got two new songs on here and a cover from Nine Inch Nails. You have A Reason to Live, No Gimbus, and Nine Inch Nails, March of the Pigs. Did you get to listen to this EP, Josh?
Yeah. I like this
What'd you
one.
think? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So a little promising future, maybe, sound-wise?
Yeah. It feels like they kind of just found like a happy medium between the old stuff and Desperate Living.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't feel like a complete return, to their old
Right.
stuff, but
Yes.
it does feel like, I don't know, it feels somewhere in the middle.
It's a happy
Desperate
medium, like you
Living
said.
felt like too big of a change.
Yeah.
And yeah, Your Fall, I remember thinking like that felt like it was more neutral ground, kind of in the middle there. And I actually enjoyed that one.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's a good indication of what could be coming next if we ever get anything. I mean, that was 5 years ago. So um I don't know. I would be interested to see if they would put out another full-length album or if they're just kind of in this mode now of doing little tours here and there and then putting out, EPs or singles every once in a while, or are we actually going to do this thing for real? Because, following an EP, Josh, one would think that a full length would, come soon after, but one would be wrong in this case, Josh, as the band would return to a period of inactivity until just recently in November of 2024 when the group announced a tour in honor of the 20th anniversary of their sophomore album, The Mechanical Hand. That's kind of cool. I think the closest they're coming to us is Dallas. Womp womp womp. Big D. The D in the pants. Anyway, uh, anyway, our current lineup is Nathan Waneke on vocals, Eric Engstrom on keys, David Eisen on guitar, Jeremiah Bignell on bass, and Daniel Pouliot on drums. I'm gonna ask you a little bit different here, Josh. Or, well, maybe not even different, but I think I'm not gonna ask you our traditional of like, yeah, what's your overall thoughts or da 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 da? Because I think you kind of said earlier where this is a hard band to really paint the picture of, to fully get you to like understand what to expect. It's more of, again, I think you just have to sit down and just experience it for yourself, right?
Yes.
So, are you just going to go in order of discography, or where do you drop it in as like a good access point to start? Mm.
That's tough. Um,
I would probably drop them in at Mechanical Hand because I feel
okay.
like our Borlax might be too crazy for a new listener.
It's just like a little too rough.
Yeah, because I feel like this is, if we want to label it, I know there's a lot of discussion with them of like, oh, we don't really want to be labeled Nintendo Core or whatever, but if you're labeled Nintendo Core, that's one that I feel like a lot of people stray from, and it's not. I mean, it's not a mainstream core or a genre. So I think you have to be kind of like cautious with some new people. So I think Mechanical Hand, with it being a little more produced, not so raw, not as, I mean, it still has some craziness to it, but I don't feel like it has as much like craziness as our Borlax delivered,
Yeah.
in the terms of just like weird, not like crazy, like chaos.
I would say Mechanical Hand or um Natural death, probably.
Natural death. Okay. Alrighty, Josh. Well, guess that's it. Horse the Band, Nintendo Core. It's a great genre. I'll enjoy it. Um, so yeah. Shall we
Yeah,
get on out of here, Josh? Oh, nope,
I
go
just
ahead.
don't know. I don't know if they're. I was thinking about it and I'm like, okay, they're doing this tour and stuff, like possibility of new music, but I'm like, probably not. Like,
That's where I'm kind of like, okay, are we just kind of in the mode of if you're gonna give me something, it's either gonna be an EP about a dish, food, or is it, some singles
about pizza.
about pizza? Or is there are you really gonna like dig in and give me a full length album? I mean, because you have to think these guys have been around since 1998. I feel like you're kind of at the point of your band's life where you're kind of slowing down. And I don't know what their personal lives are like either, but
Well, okay, so I think they filled in their little thing on Spotify.
okay.
Um, but I mean, I can read you this part.
Yeah, go for it.
Over time, as individuals, we struck out to seek our fortunes in the industries of beer brewing, the custodial arts, high tech startups, and groceries. Some of us
Custodial arts.
reproduced. Now we are here with a renewed vigor to celebrate together the 20th anniversary of the mechanical hand in 2025. Then they also mentioned we look great for our age. We're going to play every song. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, that sounds like Horse the Band.
Well, it says
Custodial
posted
arts.
by Horse the Band.
Nice. Well, I'm just saying that yeah, that's them for
Yeah.
sure. That sounded like them. I like the custodial arts part. That was funny. And jazz it up. Alrighty, Josh. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens. But ready to get on out of here, Josh?
Yes.
You ready to give it a rest for the day? Are you gonna get off here and start like beating the crap out of that Stream Deck?
I gotta figure out how to fix this.
Oh boy, it's gonna be a late night. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurviveByPro for news and latest episode postings, not just on this show, but our other shows as well. We have the History of the Cores After Hours podcast, where I sit down with my good friend and avid listener of this very podcast right here, Eric, and we talk about some of the bands me and Josh have already discussed. There is also the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons of the BBC/Netflix hit show The Peaky Blinders, and sooner or later, the movie The Immortal Man. Ooh. And we also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which has covered season 1, season 2, eventually season 3, and season 4 of HBO's House of the Dragon, and this coming summer, 2025. Season 1 of HBO's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Joshua Lynn Gary, give him some tips on how to work that Stream Deck. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review.
No, don't do that because you
hey,
don't know the specific issue, and I'm just gonna get a bunch of bullshit.
Here's what they're gonna do. They're gonna say, all right, what you do is pick it up with both hands, walk over to a trash can, forcefully throw it in there, and be done. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us and see our smiling faces or Josh's angry looks and fingers, oh man, you may be pissed off at me now. I don't know. Maybe too many jabs.
Never.
Just head on over to our YouTube page to see it all.
I'm just channeling my inner Horse the Band.
Oh, okay.
Because fuck you, that's why.
You can see us on YouTube and on Spotify as well. Just search and Survive by Productions, and they'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel and thumbs up the video. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Until the next episode, where we're talking about Michael Keene's The Faceless, and Drugs. We'll see you.